Welcome to the National Arts Club NAC at Home program. I am Angela Louie. I am the co-chair of the Fashion Committee and on the Board of Governors here at the National Arts Club. I am so happy to have you with us today. For those who are not familiar with the National Arts Club, we are a 501c3 nonprofit based in New York City with a mission to stimulate, foster, and promote public interest in the arts and to educate the American people in the fine arts. Annually, the club offers more than 150 free programs to the public, including exhibitions, theatrical and musical performances, lectures, and readings. For more information about the National Arts Club, you can visit us at nationalartsclub.org or find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to become a member of the National Arts Club, please email admissions@thenationalartsclub.org for more information. Today, I am excited we all get to learn how to slay. I'm so happy to welcome our guest, Constance White. Let me share a little about her. A veteran writer, editor, and arbiter of culture and style, Constance has helped steer brand and editorial direction for many influential companies. She has served as style director for eBay, editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, and style reporter for New York Times, and was editor-in-chief for Zinc magazine's relaunch issue. Constance is also the author of Style Noir, her first groundbreaking book on Black culture and style, and is regularly sharing her expertise in broadcasting media, such as The Today Show and CBS. Constance is the author of the much talked about style book, How to Slay, published by Rizzoli. Before we begin, if you have any questions for Constance, you can type them into the chat box. Following her presentation, we will have a brief Q&A. Her book, How to Slay, is available for sale in the link provided in the chat box. Constance, it's so nice to see you.
Thank you, Angela. It's wonderful to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. You've said something so notable that Black style is personal and also political. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, the personal is political, and in particular, this applies to Black style. When you think about the kinds of ways that Black people show up as themselves in society, we think about how many times that is either an expression, a full expression of who they are in terms of their African-American or Afrocentric roots. And then secondly, you think of that in terms of how that has been used to both celebrate on the one hand, from their point of view, and also oppress and negate and segregate on the other hand. And so when you look at it in its totality, that is why the personal is political. You think about the way Black hair is used to celebrate who Black people are. But on the other hand, it's also used to deny people employment. People still, to this day, are discriminated against in terms of the workplace because of how they wear their hair. And this particularly affects Black people.
That is shown so well in your book, How to Slay, which is exquisite. Valerie Steele writes this amazing foreword in it. And I know that there are over 200 images in the book. How did you come up with the idea of writing this book?
Well, I thought about, and first let me just say that I'm glad you mentioned Valerie Steele, Angela, and she is the chief curator at FIT and is a longtime trailblazer in fashion. And Valerie really brought to this introduction a wonderful point of view that I urge everyone to read. And really, you'll learn so much more just from her introduction, in addition to what's in the meat of the book. I thought about the book as something Black style, the contributions of African people, meaning in the diaspora, from African American to Caribbean American to Anglo African peoples, have given a lot of contributions to fashion. And working in fashion for many years for, as you mentioned, whether it was for the New York Times, for Elle, for eBay, I noticed that sitting at the shows, for example, and going into showrooms and covering collections, that a lot of times there was a lot of contribution from African peoples, if you will, and it wasn't acknowledged. I don't even know to what extent that information was being disseminated even to Black people around the world, that this was happening at the highest levels and from the most talented people in fashion. So that was number one of the things that inspired me. The second thing that inspired me is I wanted to also celebrate the style and the beauty of Black women. And in the pages, even though they're meant to in the book, in the pages of How to Slay, I'm very happy that I've accomplished that. And then thirdly, I was inspired just when you look around today in our contemporary world, and you see, especially with the digitization of media and of fashion, so news and culture travels around the world and mingles at warp speed, it showed me that this is something that we all need to acknowledge, and it's something that can bring us together if we acknowledge all our different groups' contributions to our culture, to the life, the social lives that we live.
That's a wonderful context and introduction to what we're about to learn. Well, so we're all very ready. Constance, could you tell us a little bit about How to Slay?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. So How to Slay, which I had so much help in putting this book together. It was published, as Angela said, by Rizzoli, and I really envisioned a coffee table book. And when you think about the premier coffee table books, a lot of them come from Rizzoli. So I was thrilled to have Rizzoli decide and agree to do this book. And in the book, there are more than 200 images of examples of how Black people are either celebrating and personally presenting their own style, as well as seeing the ways that different people, whether they are designers or they are celebrities, have adopted Black style to help them present themselves to the culture. It's also full of text, which has a lot of information historically, and that text, which was done by, written by me, really illuminates and shares information which a lot of people may not be aware of. So I think we all know that hip hop is a huge style driver these days. But do we know that the designer for Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy's wedding dress was a Black woman? So this is what you get when you look into How to Slay and you have this book for yourself and you go through the pages. My vision is for someone to go through, relax, and go through the pages of How to Slay and really bring a smile and a warmth to their faces as they're being illuminated and educated with these incredible images and interesting text that speaks to American culture and fashion, as well as global style. So in the book, we showcase the work of some of the top photographers in the world for fashion. And we also showcase a lot of up and coming talents as well, I'm happy to say. So Anthony Barboza, Hosea Johnson, Itasia Jordan, Patrick Demarchelier, Bruce Weber, Gilles Ben-Simon, Annie Leibovitz, Mark Baptiste, Ellen von Unworth are just some of the many photographers' work that are showcased in How to Slay. So you really, when you have How to Slay, get a rich education, if you will, in the work of different photographers. And I want to say a little bit about several of them. Annie Leibovitz needs no introduction. She's known for photographing some of the biggest celebrities in the world. But the photo, the image that I chose from her for How to Slay is actually of women in South Africa. And Annie really was clearly mesmerized by their style, the turbans, they're dressed in Holland cloth, matching dresses. And this is very typical of wear in countries like South Africa, Uganda, Kenya. So it's very different and interesting to see Annie turn her lens on someone who's not a celebrity. As we know, she's known for her work for Vanity Fair. Anthony Barboza is of great note. I have many of his images in the book. Anthony was one of the top Black photographers working in the 80s, 70s too, and 60s, and he's still working, doing wonderful work. And he not only photographed many of the leading cultural figures of those decades, but he also did a lot of fashion. So his work is now turning up in quite a few books because people of my generation and younger have discovered his work. And you see how reflective of the times it is. So there's some great photos in the book by Anthony from the 70s that really capture that look. And then there are photos he's done of Miles Davis, which I mean, when I saw those Miles Davis photos, they are incredible. Miles Davis, who wore, I mean, he was ahead of his time in terms of wearing comme des garçons and wearing incredible leathers and skins, really remarkable. Hosea Johnson, not as a well-known name as Anthony Barboza, but incredibly talented. And he did some incredible work. When I was at Essence, we used a photo for one of our covers was a photo Hosea did of Iyanla Vanzant. And it was an incredible photo, and it was one of the best sellers, one of the best-selling issues of that time in the 2000s. And well, we're still in the 2000s, but about less than 10 years ago. And Hosea also has captured a lot of incredible images of fashion. And in fact, I just speaking with Hosea recently to let you in on a little secret. One of the books that Hosea has been working on for over a decade, and I hope that he publishes it soon, is a book on Black hair. And interestingly, Hosea observed, he said, I wanted to photograph Black hair in all its beauty and guises. This was, as I said, over a decade ago. And I thought, well, why? I asked him why. And he said, because Black hair is the only hair that goes up, that defies gravity. Asian hair, European hair hangs down. Northern Asian, Indian, you know, all of it hangs down. It responds to gravity, but Black hair goes up. So I'm dying to see this book. Publishers, any publishers out there ready to do it? Dove, I think Dove has this incredible campaign, and we'll talk about this a little later, their Crown campaign. I think it's very interesting, and they could be a great partner for a book about Black hair by Hosea Johnson. Itasia Jordan is one of the most talented photographers I have ever met. And Itasia's work graces the cover of How to Slay. And Itasia in the last year or two has been extremely busy, as she deserves to be. She has such an eye for Black skin. She can basically shoot anything. White skin, beige skin, brown skin, Black skin. She can really shoot anything. But she has such an eye for style and for Black skin and Black beauty. And I am really just thrilled that she agreed to let me use one of her images for the cover of How to Slay, and that she is now becoming very busy. So if you're thinking of booking her, act fast, not gonna last long. And then and Patrick Demarchelier needs no introduction. Gilles Ben-Simon, who really started doing a lot of photography for French Elle, and then moved to the United States. And they really gave Vogue a run for their money when they moved to the United States. And Jill Ben-Simone has just been, I used to work for Jill, and he's an incredible photographer, creative director, and has shot so many women, beautiful models and celebrities. But of particular note, for the topic of how to slay and the impact of Black style, he's been really good at shooting people like, I remember Tyra Banks when Tyra was modeling, and Alec Weck. Jill was one of the first major photographers to understand and embrace and shoot Alec's beauty. Totally a groundbreaking beauty she was and is, and Jill Ben-Simone deserves a lot of credit for recognizing that early, even when people, including her own people, had an issue with how Afrocentric her features were, how dark her skin was. So the celebration, photographers are so important to the celebration and dissemination of Black style. And I also want to note Mark Baptiste, who is a trailblazing Black photographer who I actually just saw that he shot a short film for the incredible designer who is Epperson. And Epperson, who was one of the designers who was among the first in America to embrace and also popularize the disheveled look, if you will, deconstruction. And for his spring 2021 collection, Mark Baptiste shot a short film, and it's really a beautiful film. Epperson. So if you Google epperson.com, hopefully someone's in the chat who can be a bit more specific with that. You'll see the film, and I will say it is well worth watching. It's just a pretty simple film that showcases Epperson's collection by Mark Baptiste. I do want to mention Tyler, who shot the cover of Vogue. He is the first Black photographer, believe it or not, over 100 years to photograph the cover of Vogue. He's not in How to Slay, but he is worth mentioning. And I wanted to mention his work as we start to see Vogue embrace more Black photographers for in the book, substantive in the book shoots, and for the covers too. So Vogue, actually, this one that you're seeing with Beyonce, some of you will recognize that it was shot almost 2 years ago and was the cover of Vogue, and the first time. And then also now, just last month, we have Hype Williams, we have Black photographers and also Black illustrators doing work for the cover of Vogue. So the Afrocentric style has several motifs that have been embraced by global style, by Eurocentric style, by American style, and we don't necessarily recognize them as such. And one of them is leopard print. So animal prints are huge. And when you think about leopard print, it is a classic, right? Probably almost everyone listening and watching tonight may have a leopard print in their wardrobe, right? Some kind of leopard print. And this is something that we have carried down from the time where hundreds of years ago, literal leopard skins were worn in African countries, and they were worn for particular rites and passages over time. A lot of times it was royalty or tribal leaders that became the ones who were allowed to wear leopard print. It was as a particular ritual or passage, life passage was about to happen, and we will see these African people in leopard print. And then today, as we know, leopard print became a signature with Yves Saint Laurent, and of course, across the board, leopard print is now something. It's such a classic that designers dip into. What I did in How to Slay, which I had a lot of fun with, is looking at one of these tribal rituals and getting an incredible photograph of men of a particular tribe dressed in their leopard prints. And then juxtaposing it with new mother, some of you know, she's a new mother, Nicki Minaj, who is such a trendsetter in style these days. So I had a lot of fun with that, and that's a great spread and juxtaposition in the book that I think you'll enjoy. Throughout history, you can trace the rise and the pullback and trace the influences of Black style with a parallel, all of a piece with music. So if we look at music and Black style today, we see how, just mentioning Nicki Minaj, people like Nicki Minaj are so influential. You think of people like A$AP Rocky and Kanye West, Jay-Z, so influential. Beyonce, Rihanna, so influential. So I take you back, we look at these of the moment people, but I also take you back to, here's quintessential Josephine Baker. Josephine was a chanteuse who sang and danced in America, born in America, and didn't find the success she was looking for here. And so like many artists of the time, she migrated to France and she landed in Paris, where she became a very celebrated dancer and also style setter. And this idea of her wearing banana skirts, bananas as a skimpy little skirt, has been taken up by people, by entertainers, decades and decades over the years. In addition, she befriended another trend that happened, which dates back to Marie Antoinette and the court of Louis XIV, is then Josephine befriended many prominent French designers at the time. They loved her. They loved to dress her. She had such incredible style, and they loved dressing Josephine, and she wore their couture and she wore their high-priced fashion very well, and it influenced women throughout Paris. And not only what, so this is an iconic photo of her barely dressed, but there are many photographs of Josephine in full, ready to wear couture regalia. And she was very influential. That's why the designers wanted her to wear their clothes. In addition, should you know, Josephine also created, she was one of the first celebrities to create brand extensions. And so one of the things that she had was her own creams, her own skincare cosmetic line. And that skincare and cosmetic line included a cream to make your skin darker. So some people have called it, oh, are you talking about a tanning cream? I don't know if it was a tanning cream, but I don't think tanning cream necessarily says it, though it may have been that, says it totally, because the cream was already, when you applied it, supposed to make your skin darker, because women, white women with paler skin, wanted to look like Josephine. They adopted her hairstyle, that's something which I think people will recognize. But for those who don't, her hairstyle became very popular. And then they also adopted her, they wanted to adopt her skin color. Another big style icon by way of music was Billie Holiday. And Lady Day, played so unforgettably by Diana Ross in Lady Sings the Blues. Billie Holiday was very stylish. Here she's wearing this, beautiful necklace with her dress, but she became known for the flower in her hair, the gardenia. And the story has it that she was pressing, it was very common in the day for Black women who aspired to look as Eurocentric as possible, because they thought that was how they could make their way in society. It was part of the, I'm sorry, distracted for a second, in a good way. Or someone said Josephine was awarded the French medal equivalent of Medal of Freedom, or Medal of Freedom, but I think it's equivalent. So anyway, Billie had, as was the practice of the day, she pressed her hair, and many Black women felt like they had to straighten their naturally kinky curly hair to be accepted in society, to be thought of as desirable, as alluring, to get a job, to be thought of as accepting. And we've come a long way. Unfortunately, we have not, as I implicated at the beginning of the show, we've not come far enough. But Josephine was doing her hair, getting ready for a performance one night, and the story, or legend has it about the legend, is that she burnt her scalp and a piece of the hair fell out, right, because it was burnt. And so emergency, right, necessity being the mother of invention, emergency had it that she had to cover up this big bald spot where a clump of her hair had fallen out and her scalp was burnt, and she did so with a flower. And ever since, she's worn gardenia in her hair, and it became a rage, and women of all races copied her, and it became a symbol of the Billie Holiday look. Now, one of the things that started happening in the 40s and 50s was the advent of the zoot suits. And here it's worn by another entertainer, musical icon from the Black community, Cab Calloway. And the zoot suit, as you know, this is just a wonderful depiction of it. It was characterized by extra long jacket, very wide lapels, exaggerated even beyond the 70s width lapels, and the jacket was really long. The pants were oversized and baggy, and it was, sort of, as you can tell, very swaggy look. The men really brought their swag to it. Zoot was huge. It became, someone said I'm old enough to remember Cab Calloway. I love it. In his later years, the zoot suit became the look of choice for men in the 40s and 50s. In every community, bar any race, it spread to all races: white community, white men; Black community, Black men; Latino community, Latino men. But it particularly took hold in the Black community, and it was global. In France, there were men who dressed like that, and they formed themselves into a club. In California, the zoot suit was the look of Latinos who were born in America, as well as who came from Central and South America. And it actually became a look of defiance, cultural pride and defiance for these men. So this was something that if you watch, for example, Spike Lee's movie, Malcolm X, you see in his early years, Malcolm X, before he was called Malcolm X, would press his hair. The men used a pressing comb too. He'd press his hair and be all dolled out in his zoot suits. To, the 70s, the 40s and 50s rather, gave way to the 60s, and the civil rights movement began to happen. And again, to Angela's interesting and prescient question about the personal is political in style, as you can kind of hear that thread running through what we've been talking about so far. And here is a very vivid example of it. So this is a look which, we associate, sometimes we even associate it with the Beats, or we figure it came from France with the beret, and maybe they did borrow, the Black Panthers did borrow from there. But the Black Panthers started off as a social group which was looking to help increase and better education for Black kids who are being denied a proper education, particularly compared to white kids in America. And they wanted to also help to feed people who were going hungry, who didn't have enough food to eat in the Black communities, and across the board were being neglected. So they really started off as a social group, and they have since become more associated with a group that is activist and politically extreme. but they also spurred a lot of style because a lot of people in the Black community embraced the Black Panthers for what their core mission was, which was to help the communities in a peaceful and progressive way. And the look was characterized by the berets, Black leather jackets. Women wore them too. But in those days, there was no hiding from the sexism that existed across society, and as well as in the Black community, as well as in the white community. So we do see a lot more of the quintessential Black Panther style being worn by men versus women. One of the things that I'll touch on is too that you saw their minis and high boots. The women a lot of times, as with the youthquake coming over from Britain, the women wore and adapted. So you might typically see a female Black Panther in the black leather jacket, but also high boots and a little mini skirt. The other side of expression, this was all an expression and assertion of love of self, love of Afrocentricity, acceptance and love of the part of these human beings who were the part of the human beings that was of African ancestry, that has been and up until that time had been so negated and used as a force of oppression. So part of the scaling and the fighting for equal rights and social justice at the time was to assert the culture through style. And so here's another way that was asserted by the inimitable, amazing American icon, Maya Angelou, author, dancer, activist, style icon, godmother, mentor to Oprah, poet. She was so many things. And that's why it really gave me a lot of pleasure to use this photo of a young Maya Angelou, where she epitomizes another look of the 60s that was used to assert Black pride and Black humanity, which is something that was directly from African style. So these kinds of prints and a turban with a matching dress or top, whatever that other part that was covering the body was. And here it's a dress. That was a very, and is still a very typical look, to have a turban and then to have that turban with what appears to be a cotton or cotton blend fabric matching the dress. Hair is so political in the Black community. And here's a photograph. I actually do believe this is an example of Hosea Johnson's work, who I had referenced earlier. Some model wearing the afro, which is the key to the afro, and what's important about it is the hair is kept natural, typically. Now, not every afro is natural. You know, you may have, well, in addition to it just being a wig, you might have an afro where the hair is a bit processed, but if the hair is extremely processed, then there won't be an afro, it will fall. You have to, afro requires that the hair stands up somehow, whether it's straight up or it's curled, and that helps it to stand up and have volume. And so the afro really became a quintessential hairstyle of the protest politics, of Black pride, and of Black beauty. One of the most illustrious and influential Black beauties and wearers of the afro in the 60s into in the 70s was Pam Grier. And Pam was a very successful actor, gorgeous model. And she also was known for dating some really high profile men too, who could not resist her Afrocentric style and beauty. And one of the most famous is Richard Pryor. And Pam was really influential to Black culture And then as a result, it was global influence. The films of the time, which starred either entirely or majority Black casts, things like Cleopatra Jones, which starred Tamara Dobson, Coffee and Foxy Brown, which starred Pam Grier, Sheba, Come Back Little Sheba, starring Pam Grier. These were films where there was incredible fashion in them, and the hair and the swag of the men and the women. Shaft came out of that era too. Some people recognize these, as I described the films and how these films conveyed Black style around the world. Some people will recognize this is what some call the Blaxploitation genre. In some circles, that's no longer, Sheba Baby, thank you. There's no longer, it's not the best description because it's a diminutive, it's dismissive to call them Blaxploitation films. These were films that really showcased Black talent and took Black culture, including Black style, not only around the country, but around the world. I love this photo, this example. This is by Itasia Jordan, and it shows Bantu knots, which are very popular now, gaining, though some of us may still not have seen them, but they're a lot more popular than when Itasia Jordan took this photo. This photo was taken years ago, and one of the things that is great and notable about what Itasia Jordan does is she has her eye, her ear, her finger on the pulse, looking ahead in the crystal ball and seeing what's bubbling up. And so this is an incredible photo. I love this photo as an example. These are exaggerated Bantu knots. You might have even seen people like Beyonce in them by now. But Bantu knots can be all over the head. They come from the Bantu tribe. That's who's credited with first wearing them. But just a really great Afrocentric type of hairstyle, which works for any kind of hair, actually. But actually it works best with textured hair because that textured hair helps to keep the style, which is the part that's called the knot, it helps to keep it in place. If your hair is very straight and sort of therefore slippery, you may need pins to keep it in place. And here is the mother of all divas. Diva, of course, diva is a feeling, diva is a person, diva is totally a Black style construct. I don't mean, of course it's taken from diva, the opera singer, but as thought about and recognized and used in popular culture, it's something that belongs and comes out of African-American style. Diana Ross, the diva to end all divas. Diana Ross was an incredible influence on style. She here is shown in a still from Mahogany, the movie, where she's actually a model in the movie, and Billy D. Williams plays her boyfriend or husband, and I think she's a model and designer. And Mahogany was a huge influence on Black people, Black culture, and here she's wearing a huge turban, twisted in a way that became very popular and still is, from culture in countries like Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, to America, the Black community in America, and throughout England, the Caribbean, with these turbans where the fabric is twisted and sculpted around the head. It is said that when Valentino was commissioned to do the costumes for Mahogany, and Diana, being very self-possessed fashion plate that she was and is, when she saw, she wanted to be involved. And when she saw what he had created, she sent everything back. The scissors might have been taken to things, I don't know. This is what I'm hearing. And it all had to be redone because it didn't meet her expectations. So legend had it, I haven't had the chance to ask her if this is fact. What we've seen over the years is the red carpet, of course, is now its own incredible runway. And Black style is no exception to this education or runway. It has, though, become more of a runway for Black celebrities. Black celebrities were late to the game, not because of anything they did or didn't do, but they weren't allowed to share in the bounty of the red carpet until very recently. For instance, there were many designers who would not loan their clothes to Black celebrities as recently as 10, 20 years ago. Black celebrities were not many times invited to come to the show. The first thing that gets you on a red carpet is that you're getting an award or you're nominated for an award, right? So to the extent that Black talent was shut out of award season, you really didn't see a lot of them on the red carpet. The following that they had, their ability to influence, was often ignored by the people in power. It was ignored, it was overlooked, and some people, let's be real, because now we're understanding that some people were just ignorant to it. Black people traditionally have had to have a double vision, a double existence. I think it was Black intellectual Frantz Fanon who brought it up first, and this is picked up by Spike Lee, started talking quite a bit about it, where, and basically in plain English, it's, you know, if you're an African-American, if you're a Black person in America, you have to learn how to navigate your Black culture, Black society. And at the same time, you have to know and learn how to navigate white culture, white society, assuming they're two different things, right? And in some ways they are, even though we're all as one. However, if you're a white person in America, typically you don't have to know how to navigate, figure out, learn things about Black culture. Now that's been changing in the last 10 years, and hopefully in the last 10 months, we are seeing, really, we're speeding up that whole process of us all learning about each other's cultures. So people were really ignorant of the pull that Black celebrities had. They now understand. They now understand that Gabrielle Union on the red carpet, in a look, or on the cover of a magazine can sell more magazines than many white celebrities. They now understand that Viola Davis can create a Twitter storm with her acting and her beauty on How to Get Away with Murder. You know, people now understand that basketball stars like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and football stars too, with, you know, their hair, what they do with their hair in locks and so on, can really start trends and can, when the trend has been started already, foment trends. And this is something that people are now starting to acknowledge. Halle Berry, speaking of, you know, if you're going to get an award, you will then be on the red carpet, right? Halle Berry, when she cut her hair in that pixie look, that was a shot heard around the world. So many people, Black and white women, maybe a few men, I'm not saying raise your hand, but so many women copied that hairstyle. And here she is, you know, she emerging from the water in a Bond film. I mean, this is such a crazy, sexy, beautiful picture. And some of you will catch that it's a throwback, right? It's not an original, it's a throwback in the sense of Ursula Andress emerged from the water in the Bond film, and that's what they were copying. Halle Berry, just amazing. And when she was one of the first actresses, period, along with the stylist, trailblazing stylist Philip Block, of any race, Halle was one of the first to show the incredible power and potential of the red carpet. You wore a dress by a certain designer, it could put that designer's name in the spotlight right up there with the actors, and it really could push their business out the door. It could make such a big difference to their business. So when Halle won that Academy Award and she appeared on that red carpet in that incredible sheer burgundy gown, the designer whose name none of us have heard, well, people in the insiders, editors and so on, there's some of us who were familiar with the design, but most people are not familiar with that designer. When she wore that dress, it was just incredible. It was incredible for the designer's business. Well, what can I say about Beyonce here? But there's a lot to say about Beyonce. This whole, well, maybe Angela can come back and do a whole Beyonce, talk and her impact on style. What's interesting about Beyonce, first of all, this is this gorgeous, gorgeous top designed by Tina Knowles Lawson, her mother. And Tina was a hairstylist and a designer in Texas, I believe is where she was. And she really, one of the things that's interesting, the takeaways here, is she started off, the girls, Destiny's Child, they were teenagers, they were young girls. And so she was, for the most part, making their costumes. So no surprise there initially. But even as they grew, even as their careers built, they had a very hard time getting designers and brands to loan them clothes. So Tina was almost forced into making clothing. And again, a great example of necessity being the mother of invention. She was forced to make their costumes. And this is, something that, for example, that she produced out of that necessity, just absolutely gorgeous, iconic cover, and Beyonce wearing this. And then of course, the ongoing, Beyonce has had her own collection off and on for a few years, in addition to what she wears, whether it's her hair in goddess braids, or it's her dressed in, the flat, colorful loafers that she wears. Very, just love that like laid back, cool style, or it's a designer dress. She has an amazing impact on what moves at the cash register, and also what takes root in a social street style way. And now she has, as we know, she has her Ivy Park collection and her Adidas deal. So she just launched one of the Adidas collections, and it just shows her continued power as an icon, an African-American fashion icon, has incredible impact coming from the Black community. I think one of the things that we also see when we look deeply into the impact of Black style is how Black men have continuously moved the ball forward on Black style. Sometimes I see it's sort of an amalgam of gay style and Black style working together. Generally speaking, Black men, whether they are gay or straight, even Black straight men, tend to be a lot more open and adventurous about style. So I think we may all have a strong sense now that men are wearing a lot of jewelry. And this is something that when you look back at ancient African nations and tribes, the men always did wear a lot of jewelry. It wasn't clearly not something that was considered a risque or effeminate, but in our Western culture, it has been. And I think that, and we can see where a lot of this is changing now. And so Black men are leading that charge, you know, wearing necklaces, wearing earrings, things that we would associate more with women. And in fact, I do a little show on IG with my colleague Darlene Gillett Jones, and she was pointing out to me recently that pearls are starting to make a comeback, but on men. Black men are starting to wear a lot of pearls. Oh, hats. Did they time that question for this? Anyway, hats, yeah, we talked about berets, and of course, who can forget Pharrell's hats, right? Some people call it his Smokey Bear hat. But at the time, it seemed like totally out of proportion, this very high hat on the red carpet. But now it just looks super stylish, right? I love Cam Newton, the football player, and his hats. So they're definitely, and of course, Jay-Z and the Yankees cap. I mean, the Yankees should pay him a royalty because he just made that a part of style. And here's Miley Cyrus in a beret, whether she took that from, or, you know, whether she took that from French beret or Black Panther beret, but she's wearing here, you know, white girl in quintessential Black style. She has the grills on her bottom teeth, you will see. And she's got the emphasis on the nails. The whole idea of nails as art, as personal expression, as an expression of extremism and beauty came out of the Black culture, Black style. And she's wearing, you know, bunch of rings. And then, of course, that gum teeth bearing look, which is part of the hip hop swag. Because if you have the grills, you got to show them off. This you recognize, this is, you know, Holland cloth, this beautiful outfit, and it's variously called Holland cloth, Dutch cloth, which has become a signature of style, Afrocentric style, which has really taken root and is just, you know, has blossomed in the last 5 years in America. And of course, this is signature in countries like we mentioned, whether it's South Africa, Burundi, you know, Zambia, Ghana, Nigeria. This type, ironically, this type of fabric, which is so much a fixture, you know, it's like plaid. It's like plaid, I think, in Scotland or Western fashion. This type of fabric, actually, the reason it's also called Holland cloth is because a lot of it originally came from Holland. And so one of the movements that's happening right now, particularly amid the movement for sustainability, is that some African governments are trying to foment or trying to develop more textile production in Africa itself, rather than having to import a lot of these fabrics, which I think is really smart economically as well as culturally. Oprah, one of the reasons I put Oprah in the book, and this is a great photo by Victor Spragbinski, I'm trying to say his name, I may have said it wrong, is that Oprah was really good. Here she was with this talk show, and she was amazing at mentioning anything on her talk show, and it would just explode. Sites would crash. I'm not exaggerating. Sites would crash. When she had her Calvin Klein jeans, even though she was at first snubbed by Calvin Klein, to my point about how Black celebrities were often devalued in the style arena, you know, it sold out. People ran out, her women, her followers ran out and bought Calvin Klein jeans. You know, if she mentioned shoes by Christian Louboutin or Manolo Blahnik, anything she mentioned in the style arena knew that it would automatically get a great boost. So we are nearing the end of this portion of the presentation, and I would like to tell you a few things about what you can do with the book. And as I said, I love for you to use it as a relaxation tool. You know, curl up with a glass of wine, red or white, and your How to Slay book and leaf through it, your drink of choice. coffee, tea. You can also put it on your coffee table to decorate your home. I've seen people color coordinate it. See how good it looks on that table? You can use it to practice your posture, as my mother used to do with me in books. Yes, walk around the house with it on your head. Or you could buy it as a great holiday gift or even birthday gift for the fashion lover or book lover in your life. And I'd love to see you do that this holiday. It's a beautiful book, and I think you'll find it illuminating. And you can tell them as you write, love you, tell them why they slay. Oh, I forgot my last one where you can like flip through it and look like you're being really erudite, but you're just looking at the pictures. Yes.
Wow,
And there's
that's
my Instagram. Follow me at the White. Thank you. I look for you on Twitter, Facebook. Thank you, Angela.
that's Constance, that was beautiful. Thank you for taking us through this inspirational presentation. Let's start with a couple of questions, and then we can get to the ones from the audience. So the book, I noticed that in the book, you have a chapter in the book about bare skin. Can you tell us a little bit about why you put that chapter in there?
Yes, thank you. I just think that we make such a focus on skin color, and when in fact we're all so much more alike than we're different, with the a few physical exceptions like the color of our skin. So I wanted to highlight the beauty of Black skin. And there's also a poem that I give as my gift to everyone here today. If you should purchase the book, to read that poem and just see, we all have beautiful skin shades and they all should be celebrated. So I wanted to include that because it can be part of our style. And if it's our personal expression, there's nothing wrong with that. It's all right.
We saw a couple of beautiful photos of women with afros. There is a chapter in the book titled Afro Chic. What would you say makes the afro so provocative and so powerful?
Yes. I think the thing about the afro is it's a rare hairdo which stands, gravity-wise, goes upward, as Hosea Johnson, the photographer, said. Whereas there's so many other hairstyles which don't require that. Almost no other hairstyle requires that your hair be able to stand up for you, except, the afro. And so I think that it's really unique in nature that way, and therefore we're drawn to it, and there's something that's very right about it. It's the same way that when there is something in nature that, there's a beauty in the commonality of something, but there's also the beauty in the rarity of something. And in the case of the afro, in this case, I think that's part of the beauty of it.
We have a few questions from the audience, and many of them are very curious about what's in your book. So the first one is, does the book speak to hats of any kind, either for men or women?
Pardon me, does it speak to what?
Does it have hats of any kind for either men or for women?
Oh yeah, there are many hats in the book, from the Miley Cyrus to the other one we just saw, there, Rihanna, where she's wearing a sort of cap hat, to, there's several hats, turbans, hats on men and hats on women. Because crowns are so much a part of.
This next question is a great one. We have on your photo, this beautiful photo of the model in the African-inspired print dress. What are your thoughts about white women wearing this type of print?
Yes. My thought is very clear and is not necessarily everyone's thought. So I'm going to give mine, and then I'm also going to give another thought. So my thought is that anyone wearing another culture's, let's say, a white woman wearing that type of dress, I think is okay. I do think you have to be sensitive to it. Where we run into trouble, what appropriation is, for me, is when you can't be wearing that dress today and then tomorrow you're saying, well, wasn't it horrible, that that poor man was murdered by the police? Okay, I'll take, a burger and fries. And, I think the two, you can't be saying, okay, today I'm wearing that dress and then tomorrow I'm having a coffee platch with my 10 friends, or, book reading club over at the house with 10 of my friends, and not one of them is ever Black. So I think you have to live it, and it's when you're not living or supporting the situation of discrimination makes it appropriation. I'll give you another quick, that's my view. Another quick point of view on it is, I was having this discussion with someone recently. They were saying, well, I feel that you shouldn't just wear that dress. Let's say you're a white woman wearing that dress. You should get to know the designer. You should develop a relationship with the designer so that when you are wearing it, there's a personal connection.
Great.
So it's meaningful in some way.
Right, to sort of give it a little bit more of a connection to the design in the dress. If you were to write this book today, what other images would you include in the book?
Oh, what a great question. If I were doing this today, I would certainly include the recent covers of, with Beyonce cover of Vogue. This month, Naomi Campbell is on the cover of Vogue. Not like there aren't enough Naomi pictures in the book, right? But Naomi Campbell and then Leah Kabady on the cover of Harper's Bazaar, because those are historic photos. I would also include perhaps some work from a few more of the Black designers in there. And I would include, I think that's it, not a lot more, because there really is always so much that I could have easily do 5 books without looking anywhere. So I wouldn't go too far afield, but those are some that come to mind.
Well, this is a gorgeous book, and all of the photographs are so stunning. Constance, what's next on the horizon for you?
Well, my goodness, there is a lot, but I can't say specifically, but one of the things that my team and I would love to do is to now see this go to the 3rd stage, which is to see it in a video form, whether that is a TV show, documentary, or online, streaming documentary. I think that's absolutely a next step for me. And then in terms of another day-to-day parallel is making sure, being able to help give culture, bring cultural relevance, sensitivity to companies in a way that makes sense for their bottom line. Someone captured it for me and said it's cultural capital. Bringing that from a business perspective. We as a society, I would love to see this book utilized in a way that people feel it's a bridge. It's a bridge to understanding each other better. It's a bridge for us to come together. On a business level, I would love to see, meet opportunities and give of my expertise, my team's expertise, to help that happen at a business level. And it is a business, so people need to see how it makes sense for their bottom line, and it does. And I want to help them show that with sensitivity, because even as people move, good-hearted, well-meaning people move toward greater inclusivity today with the social justice movement happening, and people understanding how global and interconnected we're becoming, even as that's happening, we're still seeing missteps that people just don't understand like what's relevant, what's sensitive to certain communities.
Well, certainly the book and this presentation is opening up a dialogue and starting conversations that are very needed for all of the efforts that you are describing. Thank you so much for joining us today and the wonderful presentation.
Michelle, I'm just interrupting to say, yes, Michelle Obama is in the book, and yes, Meghan Markle would have been in the book today, but she's not.
There was also a quick question to see if Iman is covered in the book.
Who, Iman? Iman?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, she is. Absolutely.
Constance White, it's been an honor to have you with us. I want to just remind the audience, if you're interested in Constance's book, the link to order is in the chat box. If you're interested in other programs presented by the National Arts Club, you can visit our YouTube channel. You can also go to nationalartsclub.org. I am Angela Louie, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Angela. Pleasure, everyone. Thank you.